Good. Okay, good people. We're moving right along in the Ward F Community Forum. We're going to talk a little bit about census, and we have Chris Gastons here to speak about census. Why is it important? When is the deadline? And what exactly is going on with the U.S. Census? So, Chris, can you please take it right away?
Listen, on September 30th, we finished counting, and it's just a matter of days left, right? So every person in Jersey City, particularly Ward F, because Ward F, they have many communities in it that are part of the undercount. Like they're undercounted. They were undercounted. They were undercounted in 2010. They were undercounted in 2000, and now they're undercounted again. So if you have Jersey City, which is saying that at this point right now, about 55% of the residents have been counted, it's going to be drastically different inside of the undercounted sections of Ward F, such as Saylock Court, such as areas around the housing developments. And being that our community is relatively transient, meaning that people move from back and forth around and around, all around Jersey City, we're not getting an accurate count. And that accurate count is important because each person is money. Each person are valuable, right? But you got to ask yourself the question: well, why are you valuable? Well, you're valuable for a lot of reasons. I'm gonna list a couple of ways that census data is impactful. It impacts funding for resources like libraries, schools, hospitals, health clinics, Head Start, school meal programs, public transportation, housing assistance, Medicare, supplemental nutrition assistance programs, SNAP, right? Fire departments are affected by it, roads and highways and, community centers. So if you don't count the people don't exist. And if they don't exist, there's money that's allocated to assist people. Now, in this country, $675 billion in federal funding are distributed. And you want a pot, like you want a good section of that money to come to Jersey City. You want that money. But the census also affects like elections, right? Because after the count is done, after this presidential election, then you're going to start redistricting different sections. You're going to start redistricting, congressional seats and legislative districts. You're going to reappropriate, congressional seats. Back in the 1990s, New Jersey actually lost a congressional seat. Now, when you got 435 people inside of Congress and losing one person in Jersey, that matters, especially inside of a situation where you have a Republican House, you have all the rest of those things. These things really do matter. So the politics, not only just the funding, but the politics are at play, right? Because we can't lose representation inside of New Jersey. You talk about federal assistance funding, that matters. Jersey City needs federal assistance funding. We need money, whatever, for schools. We need money for hospitals. In Jersey City, you hear about hospitals being closed down and buildings being, purchased by private folks. But that's because, we need the funding, right? We need the funding to keep Medicare, medical services here for the people, especially on the South Side. South Side really don't have too many medical facilities. Remember, the Greenville Hospital closed down and all the rest of those things. So the census impacts a lot. All right, it really impacts a lot. Now, the only question that they're asking you is, did you live at a dwelling on April 1st? Because back in April, you received something in the mail that you probably didn't return back, right? So now you have people called enumerators, like myself, census enumerator. We're coming around, with our census phones, and we're basically seeing who did not fill out the survey. So we're going to ask you simple questions. Did you fill out the survey? You're going to say no. Did you live here April 1st, 2020? You're going to say yes. How many people live inside of the home? You're going to say 3, 4, 5. Who are they? You can give the birthday. You can give the ethnic group. You can give the race if you want to. And then the interview is over. No one's asking for social security numbers. Nobody's asking, about your immigration status. We're not ICE. We're not people, whatever, going out trying to get you into trouble. We just need a count. Jersey City, before the census, was kind of advertising trying to be the largest city in New Jersey. And right now we're not, because we're far behind the count. All right, we're far behind the count. So if in your mailbox, if you see a census worker leave behind a notice of visit, go on to my2020census.gov, call the number. The interview only takes a couple of minutes. It only takes a couple of minutes, not even like 2 minutes, 3 minutes of your time. Now, that matters, because if 50,000 people didn't take the census, that's millions of dollars that we lost here in Jersey City. And the undercount residents, please let a census worker do their job. Or if you got that mailing, because they're mailing out surveys like every week because people have not responded, just complete it. All right, do your service, as my friend says, do your due diligence, and make sure that the census is filled out. You only have until September 30th, Wednesday, September 30th, and it's done, and we're over. All right, let's be counted. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are you today? My name is Michael Griffin. I'm sitting here with Chris Perez. We are residents of Ward F.
Hey, everybody.
Just to let you know, we are here to discuss development within our community. So, development within our community is taking place. It's taking place rapidly. So, with that being said, it is important for you to reach out to your Division of City Planning, reach out to your zoning, so that you can be on their mailing list, get information, so you can know what's going on. They have bi-weekly meetings, so you will get a agenda every other week. You can look, you can see what's taking place on your block or within your neighborhood. So all of these divisions fall under Housing, Economic Development, and Commerce. There are other divisions that fall under that. You can see it here on the slide. We're not going to get into that now because our focus is to bring 2 divisions to you at a time. So the first 2 and most important is development and zoning. So with development, for example, we usually have community meetings. With these community meetings, we meet with the developer and we bring in, of course, people from the community. And it's important to have these meetings because there are 3 different types of zonings, or there are several different types of zonings, right? You have your R zonings, which is like R1 through 5, which are residential. Then you have your commercial districts, which speaks for itself. It's all about, building commercial. And then you have your redevelopment plan areas, which are areas in need of redevelopment. We have a lot of that in Ward F, Jackson Hill, we have Canal Crossing, we have Mars Canal, and several others. The reason why we are bringing this information to you is because we do understand that we have a lot of residents who may not live in these redevelopment planned areas. They may, for the most part, you may live in R zone areas, which are the residential areas. And it's important to know what area you live in, especially if you're in an R1, because what's happening is developers are looking to come in and change zoning, right? So, when it comes to zoning, you have a process called variance application. So what these developers do is they'll bring in an architect, they'll find land, which is maybe an infill. For example, there was a project proposal for Arlington Avenue where they wanted to tear down a perfectly good home and get variance for zoning. So, in order to ensure that that doesn't happen, we're coming to you to give you information so you can understand how to have a voice. So, with that being said, let me just give you a couple of examples of how we've been successful and how we've not been successful, right? So, some years ago, we actually combined the Monticello Avenue redevelopment plan and the Jackson Hill redevelopment plan. And what that did was that helped us streamline the entire commercial strip, right? It's 2.5 miles, and we did it because we want uniformity, right? So if we're saying that maybe it's 4 different zones within the district, we want this zone to remain what it is, 3 stories. We may want this zone to be 5 stories. We may want a zone to be 10 stories, or a particular area to be 10 stories. Like, for example, at the hub, there's a large plot of land where it wouldn't make sense to do 3 or 4 stories, but maybe anywhere from 8 to 12.
And then where transportation is, like the light rail stations and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Chris has a great point there, right? If we want density, then it makes sense to do that. However, when you talk about different blocks, let's say Stegman, for example, right? Stegman, Wegman, Myrtle, Grand, just Astor Place, just side streets. You do have developers who had attempted but failed to create larger buildings versus homes, right? They would come in, if it's an infill project, maybe 2 homes were next to each other, and now it's a lot. They figure because of the lot size, they can go ahead and do a 20 to 30 unit apartment building versus what the zoning is, which would be maybe 2, 3, or 4 different 2-family homes, right? And that makes a big difference, right? Because you're spreading the land out, you're being conducive to the block. You want everything pretty much at the same height, and you're bringing in less people on these side blocks. And we can go into a whole lot of things when it comes to development and whether it makes sense or not, because now you get into things like parking and density and things like that. It doesn't make sense to have larger buildings on side blocks where there's no parking,
right,
versus if you're doing it on a commercial strip and you have parking, maybe it's not 1-to-1, which means a parking spot for every apartment, but if it's again close to the light rail, close to public transportation, then it would make sense. And I know a lot of people out there are pretty fed up with the parking situation, and see, this is why you're able to tie everything in, right? And that's why it's important to know what's coming to your community. And the best way to do that is to keep yourself informed when it comes to planning and when it comes to zoning. Even if you're looking for development and you see that development is taking place, it's very important to see what type of development is coming. It's very important for you to understand what if they're going for variances. Because if they're going for variances, that means they're looking to change the landscape, right? Versus as of right. As of right basically means whatever was there, they're looking to build again, and it's totally above board, right? It's no changes are being made.
It conforms to the zoning.
Right, and it conforms to the zoning, absolutely. And so, that's very important, right? But even still, what we like to do with these type of projects, we still like to be a bit hands-on and have the community give input when it comes to design.
Right.
Because, you can say that this is as of right, but do you want a pink and blue house on your block? Do you want a block with do you want all siding when everything is brownstone? Do you want all brick when everything is Victorian? So it's very important that we understand the processes, and that way there's less frustration, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some information, and if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us. Send us an email. From the email here, and then I'm going to pass it along to Chris, and he's going to take it from here.
Nice. So what Mike was talking about is really important, about our community having access to all these resources he's talking about at the planning department. So make sure you keep those numbers and info handy, so you have where to go to get that information to kind of be on top of things. We just wanted to also go into a little bit of detail about what the zoning rules and what the zoning looks like throughout Jersey City. So we're going to put up this link that we're also going to put in the comments, and you should definitely look into this on your free time because it's a lot to kind of go through on our show tonight. But the first link is a map. It's actually a map of Jersey City, and it's a zoning map. Jersey City is about 21 square miles. It's pretty big. And on this map, as you can see, there are different areas, and they're kind of labeled. Like Mike was talking about, we have R zones. You'll see a lot of R1. You'll see the redevelopment plans on that map. They're noted with colors and numbers. And there's a legend at the top on each corner that kind of reference, so you can figure out what redevelopment plan that matches up with that Mike was talking about earlier. So when you have some time, definitely scroll through this. Maybe you can figure out where your home is and see what zone you're in. And then what you can do is take the next step. So the next slide that's coming up, and we'll put this link in the comments as well. This is actually a link to more specific details in each of the zones. So in there you'll see like the R zones that Mike was talking about. You'll see the neighborhood commercial zones. There's a bunch of different zones, and in this link, once again, you should look through this on your free time because it's a lot of info to digest. Development is a lot, and that's why we're going to do it in segments. But for today, we're just doing kind of an overview. But look through that link in your free time, and you can go through, match up what zone you live near or in, and then look up on the second link, and you can kind of match up what's allowed in that zone. And that'll give you a little more empowerment and knowledge so that when development's coming into your community, you can kind of feel justified in how you feel, whether you want to see things change a little bit or if you want to see things conform to the zoning. That's why those meetings that Mike was talking about are really important, those community meetings. Basically, what happens with development, if you're living in close proximity to a proposed development like Mike was talking about, you might get a notice. Usually the notice goes out to all the properties within 200 feet of a property that's going to be have a proposal, right? And so you might get this notice saying that there's like a zoning hearing. And that's kind of like a court hearing where the developer's proposal for something that doesn't conform to the zoning is being heard. And there's a board of commissioners, there's a zoning board and a planning board, and they will listen to the proposal, right? And then there'll be a portion where they listen to community feedback, right? And then they'll render a decision as to whether or not to approve or deny the application. And that's very important. A lot of residents may not even be aware of how your voice is so important in that decision-making process. So if you happen to get one of those notices, we have a lot of development going on in Jersey City right now, and you might, don't get nervous, but you should definitely call city planning and try to learn a little bit more about the project. See if your local community group is engaged in it at all, and work with them. And then see what zone you're in and see what they're proposing and how it conforms or doesn't conform. Knowledge is power, so that you can make the best decision for the kind of development you want around you. So that's basically kind of the overview of the basics of development. The planning hearings are on Tuesdays at 5:30, and they usually happen every 2 weeks. And zoning hearings are on Thursdays at 6:30. They're about every 2 weeks as well. They used to be done at City Hall, but because of COVID, they're on Zoom, which makes it really convenient for more people to speak up from the convenience of work or home while juggling other responsibilities. And we'll get back to you with more info and subsequent sessions about development, and we'll kind of focus on specific things. Maybe we'll talk about the R zones, and then we'll talk about redevelopment plans. It's a lot of info, but just for today, we wanted to make you start to feel a little comfortable about learning the basics about development. And we will talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Good night. Good evening, everyone. This is Michael Griffin again. And I am here with Natalia Ioff, and we are here to discuss quality of life issues and how to help yourself be self-sufficient. So, we do have many issues within our community that brings down the quality of life. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you some examples of those issues, and then we're going to give you some tools to use to help resolve these issues. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Ms. Ayoff.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Natalia Ayofi. I am a relatively new resident of Ward F, about 4 years plus. And as a Ward F resident, I encountered all these issues just as a simple resident of how to improve your neighborhood, even just by, on your own, by using the tools available. And some of the tools that we encountered while researching are, you can use social media, you can use apps or websites that the city provides, or you can use your own utility provider, right? This allows you to be a responsible homeowner, knowing your rights, knowing what's available to you, and such. So one of the tools that we've discovered was C-Click-Fix. You will hear that name called by the city services. It's an app or a website that you can use. The website is cclickfix.com, or an app that you can search up on your phone. It's very simple. You create a profile with your name and location, which is your home address, and immediately upon creating your profile, you will be able to quote-unquote report an issue. This issue can be anything in your neighborhood, from tree branches falling down, a sewage overflow, a street light being out, so on and so forth. So I'll give you one example that I personally had to deal with after a hurricane. We had a lot of down branches. They fell down. Being responsible residents, we gathered them all in one place. We took a picture, we submitted it on the C-Click-Fix. The service immediately responded, which was DPW in that case. They came, they removed the branches, it was great. So, allow the city like a response time of about, a few days at least, depending on the issue. But it usually happens to be successful. And one of the great things about C-Click-Fix is that it does give you an option to share your issue on social media if you feel that you're not getting the response that you need in the time that you need. And I just want to follow up that example with a common problem that we have in Ward F, which is the sewer overflow after the rain, right? So a lot of our areas happen to be like below sea level. And so in any heavy rain, we have the flash flood warnings and then the sewer overflow. And it's not so much the amount of water that falls down, but it's the sewer that kind of comes right back up onto our street and then just stays there even when the rainwater comes back down. And that becomes a huge problem for our neighborhood with the toxic, just the smell and the substance that remains on our sidewalks. It's a huge hazard to your families, to anybody who walks through those streets, to bring it into your house, for your pets, for your children. The smell alone is terrifying. Mm-hmm. So that's another great example of something to, again, click a picture, submit it on C-Click-Fix, and request specifically, this is just my advice, for not just the Jersey City Municipal Authority to respond, but to bring, I call them power washing trucks, but they'll understand what you mean. That street needs to be usually washed. Street sweeper is not sufficient. Right? So those are just two kind of like strong examples of things that we deal with on a regular basis as residents, not just Ward F, but specifically in Ward F. And I want Michael to talk about another important issue, which is abandoned and vacant lots.
Sure.
Kind of the plague over.
Sure, absolutely. So, Bergen Lafayette and Greenville, how are you this evening? Many of you as residents, homeowners, and even renters may know the issues that we have when it comes to abandoned and vacant lots. So, with that being said, Natalia did bring up a good tool called C-Click-Fix. What I usually do is if I'm going past an abandoned lot, an abandoned property, vacant, I make sure I take a picture if it's not maintained, and I send it straight through C-Click-Fix. What I also do is I take those pictures and I may email them to someone at DPW, or I may give DPW a call. And I'm not saying that you can do that. C-Click-Fix is fine. I'm just giving you an example because I've been doing it so much. I was able to
and
actually
meet all resources
with
available. Basically,
absolutely. And some people may not be comfortable with calling. Some people may not be comfortable with emailing, but C-Click-Fix is a great tool. And when it comes to graffiti, if you see graffiti on these properties, but I'm talking about garbage, I'm talking about high grass, broken windows, they can come out and secure these properties. Because a lot of times what happens is you may get some stray animals living in there that can be nasty, right, for a lack of a better term. You can also, health issues. unhealthy. And you also come across properties where there may be squatters, which is dangerous, right? We know in Greenville, we know in Bergen Lafayette, and a lot of Ward F and Jersey City, a lot of the homes are connected. And, a lot of homeowners may own homes connected, attached to abandoned properties. So, if you are one of these homeowners, this is especially for you because you may have run into issues where there were squatters, right? Where you may have been calling the police and the police will come out, remove them, and they go back. But, when you use C-Click Fix, you get the Department of Public Works, they'll come, the property owner, they'll get fined. Then also they will secure the property, and that's what's important. The property needs to be secured so no one can get back in there, and you can have a sound peace of mind. And again, I can never stress it enough, the appearance, right? Tall grass, garbage, they'll come, they'll cut it, they'll clean it out, and again, they'll make sure that the property owner is held accountable, right? So, again, we have a lot of that in Ward F, and, we're giving you this information so that, you can be self-sufficient and say, hey, this is easy. I'll take my smartphone, I'll take a picture, and I'll send it to C-Click Fix. And of course, the link to the the link to the app will be here as well.
Exactly, and what affects one of us can affect all of us, and one house
Absolutely.
can reflect on the entire neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And, exactly, and one of the examples of like what Michael was saying with abandoned properties, something that is essentially a maintenance issue can easily become a public safety issue.
Absolutely.
Exactly, and another example of that is streetlights. You hear that often mentioned at neighborhood meetings. Who do I call when my street light goes out, right? It can affect a single block, especially in like a shaded wooded area, a whole lot. I had a situation on my block, 2 street lights went out at the same time. You wouldn't believe the huge difference that it makes at night. Like as soon as like 9:30, 10, especially now that it's getting darker sooner. So one of the suggestions that I would like to share, in addition to C-Click Fix, because we want to look at all possibilities, as Michael said, don't just look at like a single resource, right? Be open-minded, use everything at your disposal, call the city department numbers, use the C-Click Fix, and in this case, I want to also offer contact your utility provider directly. In this case, with a streetlight outage, believe it or not, it may be faster to contact pseg.com directly. I pay my bills online with PSEG, and when you create an account online, all you do in your profile, there's an option there to report a streetlight outage. And the only thing that it will ask you, in addition to obviously your name and your location, is the number of the streetlight that went out. And it's very easy to locate. Every streetlight has a number attached to it, and you can take a picture of it or just, write it down, and you just type it in. The response time is phenomenal. I mean, at least in my experience. I've had to report it multiple times in the course of 4 years. Usually within 3 or 4 days, PSEG truck comes out, they install a new street light, and the difference is just immense. In the light, on a dark street in the middle of the night, a working street light can make a whole lot of difference for you and your neighbor's safety. So.
Absolutely, and there are some cases where I actually, may not have lived on a block, but if I'm on another block, if I'm parking my car or something like that, and it's parking under a light that's out, or just walking down the street maybe a block or 2 away from me, all it is just knowing what the address is and sending that information out, and they'll come out and fix it. So it just doesn't have to be your block or in front of your home. It can be within your neighborhood, and it's something relatively simple to do.
Yeah. And it's part of being a responsible homeowner. It's not just because it's your house that's in darkness, it's your whole block. Part of you being a responsible homeowner is to kind of be on the lookout for the rest of your neighborhood. And Mike, if you'd like to talk more about what else it means to be a responsible homeowner, because there's so much more to it.
Sure. And this is for our homeowners especially. And it's all about property maintenance and property care and what you're responsible for. And I'll give a brief example here. Let's talk about snow removal, for instance, right? There are times where we had major snowfalls, and once the snowfall ends, you have 2 or 3 days pass, and now the snow is ice, and that's dangerous. And if you're not aware, if someone slips and falls in front of your home because you didn't shovel, you're gonna have some issues. You're gonna have some legal issues, and so with that being said, once the snowfall ends, you have 8 hours to shovel. And if it ends overnight, you have 4 hours after sunrise. So it's very important, right? And we can get into other things like recycling and garbage and things like that. But that was just one example. And of course, we're going to have more information for you, what to look out for, how to be more of a responsible homeowner and renter as well, as time goes on. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over back to Ms. Ioff.
Thank you so much. I hope you like what we're bringing you guys. Hopefully, we would like to be able to continue because, as Michael said, there is so much more. I mean, it's just a vast number of topics that that concerns all of us on a daily basis as homeowners, as renters, as residents. And you don't have to be, one of the things that we're trying to impart to you with this whole project is that you don't have to be a part of something huge in order to make a difference. One of the things that I learned after moving to Ward F from fellow residents of Ward F is don't wait for Superman, be your own Superman. You can be the superhero of your block, you can be the superhero of your neighborhood. You will inevitably find like-minded people because these types of issues, they are the ones that unite you together, and you will kind of end up joining naturally one way or another, right? So one thing that I just want to throw in there, even like with regard to snow removal, know your rights too, because it's so much more than just knowing the regulations and knowing your responsibilities, but know your rights. With something like snow removal or even cutting your grass, I would personally recommend, from painful experience sadly, take pictures before and after you remove your snow, so that if for whatever reason an inspector comes along and takes issue with something, that you have actual proof that's time stamped, like this is what I've done, this is my property, and it's time stamped so that you can have something to show for it. I know CCTV Absolutely. Can be looked at like, not everybody can afford to have it or not everybody has it. But again, it's like a bigger issue, but I would recommend it because it's also part of your kind of awareness of your neighborhood and for your protection. And that's about it.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all, we're going to move to the public safety portion of what's going on. That's going to be done by me and my brother, Tony Perkins. So let me get over here. All right. I guess you could start, and then I'll chime in. Okay. Yeah. Let's do it that way.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tony Perkins, aka TP, and welcome to the Ward F Community Forum. I'm excited to be here, in the good company of all these good people, giving you all that good information, just to inform some of you on something you might already know, and most of you on something that you don't know. And that's the worst.
Yes.
Not knowing. But I was that guy, when it came to internal affairs. I heard about it, but didn't really know about what I'm about to share with you guys. First and foremost, I just want to inform you guys that the location of the Department of Internal Affairs is 1 Journal Square Plaza, 4th floor, Jersey City, New Jersey, 07306. The number is 201-547-5472. And I just wanted to give a little brief rundown on what internal affairs entails and what they're responsible and accountable for. Internal Affairs Unit monitors the actions, behaviors of Jersey City Department personnel, ensure, the compliance with department rules, regulations, policy, Attorney General guidelines, directives, and city ordinances, as well as the state and federal law, which is very important. Internal Affairs Unit has the responsibility to investigate all allegations of misconduct involving sworn members of Jersey City Police Department. The internal affairs is so important. It's kind of funny because I just had a run-in myself with internal affairs last night, and just filing a complaint. You know, a lot of these situations take place here in Jersey City. A lot of incidents take place, and I just want to touch on one, the reason why. And it states, you know, their obligations additional to this investigative, any other actions or inaction by any officer that may demonstrate they are unable, unwilling, or unfit to perform their official duties. And we kind of witnessed that a lot here in Jersey City. And just to bring up one incident that definitely required an internal affairs situation was the situation in the square, where the officer was off duty.
Okay.
And had an encounter with a citizen up there. And just situations like that, you know, makes internal affairs so important. You know, we have to be aware of these things. Just like we know where our community libraries are, we need to know where internal affairs is.
Absolutely.
You know, and the importance of filing a complaint and just knowing how to file a complaint. They have a form, and what's most important about that form is just detailing everything, because the more information that they have on paper, they can really kind of assess everybody and help everybody with their concerns. And that's very important, you know, and we already know a complaint should be filed when you witness or experience a personal encounter with Jersey City Department personnel that involves criminal conduct, misconduct, abusive or discriminatory behavior, neglect of duty, etc., you know, or violation of rules and regulations of the Jersey City Police Department, and which is very important. And next, I want to just touch on the process of submitting the complaint. You know, and what we need to know is complaints are accepted 24 hours, 7 days a week. You know, by either an internal affairs officer, a police supervisor, or necessary any available police officer. So that's what we need to be mindful of too. Like, this don't just have to happen at a specific time. 24/7 you can file a complaint, and you can download the complaint form, because we need to know about the necessary information that that's going to be required, and how to fill out these forms. And what it entails is pretty much, you know, the body of the incident that took place, and just giving all detailed information. And what's mostly important also I want to talk about is how complaints are investigated, which we all need to know.
Absolutely.
You know, it's very imperative that we all know how these incidents are reviewed up at Internal Affairs, and make sure they are in our favor, you know, if need be. And pretty much, I think that's pretty much.
Yeah, and also just to throw a few more details to the internal affair process and why it's important, because so many times, right? And before I even continue, this is not, you know, trying to attack the police or anything. In fact, in essence, this actually shed light and protect the officers that's doing what's right, because as we file internal affair complaints for excessive force, misuse of force, or inappropriate behaviors from the individuals that's bad, we begin to weed them out and build a better relationship with the officers who's abiding by the oath that they swore to serve and protect. But why it's extremely important is because if an officer is known to have a track record against him, you know, because odds are, for the most part, the officer is held in high esteem, so they're always given the benefit of the doubt. So if you have 15 people making similar complaints about this same officer in different areas of Jersey City, odds are they're going to be more likely to believe the citizens, because there have been a track record on file of this officer's misappropriate behaviors. And as recently, even the county prosecutor is basically saying that it's hard for her to essentially do her job when individuals whom the community is saying was violated, subsequently those individuals don't go and file internal affair reports. So it's extremely important that we begin to file these reports and make sure that these reports are accurate, reported as soon as possible, because we are all humans, and once time lapse, we tend to forget things that transpired. So try to do it as quick as possible. Case in point, when police officers have to do police reports, they don't wait the next day to do the police report. They do it right after they apprehend the suspect and they get to a location where when they're allowed to do that. So if you feel that you have been harassed, excessive force, or anything due to that type of situation or anything to that magnitude or nature, please report that to the Internal Affairs here in Jersey City. Again, you can always reach out to me. I will put you in contact with people who's savvy and going to help you file reports, walk you through the steps. In some instances, you may even get a ride to go and file the police report, because we want to make sure we're advocating for our most disadvantaged individuals in the community. So moving right along with public safety, right? I want to talk about supportive services, and I want to talk about why these supportive services are necessary and why we must use them. The first reason why we must use them is because our tax dollars already pay for them. You know, these are grants that these entities get to deal with these type of situations. And another thing why it's very important that we utilize these entities, because you guys seen it happen over and over when the police are called when an individual is having some type of mental incapacity or a mental episode, and the police is called there. And a lot of times, because of the relationship with police and community, when that individual who's having that episode sees them, it kind of intensifies the situation. So that's why we need to be calling the appropriate authorities to handle the appropriate things. So I'm going to just give you in a glance, and again, we're going to put all of this on our page so you can have access to call, to go on these individuals' websites, to be able to email them, and make sure that you're utilizing the resources. So we have all type of grief support, domestic support, and it's extremely important that we know this, right? That we know this. I vividly recall, right, losing my father when I was young, losing my mother, losing a best friend, losing a close friend, losing a brother whom I hung out with, and I've never been to counseling in my life. One, because I didn't know that the resource existed, and two, because of the perception of mental health services in the Black and brown community. So I want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence as it relates to providing the information to these entities, right? So again, we're going to post all of those entities on our Facebook page. And something that's extremely important, right? If you follow crime, right? And I'm not just talking about people who always, pop up when a topic is hot, right? If you follow crime, you notice within about the last 18 months or 2 years, all of the violent crime in Jersey, in the state of New Jersey, were perpetrated by young males, i.e. teenagers and young adults. There is services in line for those individuals to get some form of intervention. There's clinicians available, there's mentors available, there's therapists available. You can call Perform Care to have social workers come out to your house to figure out what services best suit the situation that's going on. Also, let's say we have a dire situation, right? Where, I don't know, a kid may be thinking about cutting itself or doing something to itself. We can reach out to medical center. We can reach out to mobile crisis where they'll be able to intervene immediately. So there's a plethora of organizations, and they're even taking it a step further. So many times we see disagreement and conflict within the family environment. We even have a county agency that do family counseling.
Right.
I know a lot of times I've sat in on those meetings, and a lot of times it's just miscommunication between the child and the mom, or miscommunication between the dad and the child. And when they go to counseling and they iron things out, and they go like, "Oh, well, it was only that," So that resource is available. We must make sure where how Raz Baraka say we must hold a line. We must make sure we're holding a line and we're doing this thing together. So there's a plethora of resources. We need to utilize these resources to make sure our kids are getting the necessary services. And I'm going to say this before I get out of here, people. Namely to my brothers and sisters, listen. It's not a knock on you if your child have some type of mental health illness. It's nothing you've done as a parent. We need to get rid of this negative stigma that's associated with getting our children help, because we can put it off and just laughing, think he's gonna outgrow it, and then subsequently if he end up harming someone that's detrimental, or he end up being killed because of his actions, then we have done a disservice to our most disadvantaged demographic. So again, these links are going up, these contacts is going up. Utilize the links. How people call me, and I have no problem with y'all calling me. Make sure you call them. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. We're going to do closing. We're going to do closing remarks, and we're going to talk about the future agenda. But before we get into that, right, I do want to thank the individuals who hacked the Zoom, and I also want to thank the individuals who attempted to hack my Facebook page, because you have just inspired me to go even harder than what I was going. So I really want to thank you for your due diligence as it relates to trying to cause a chaotic scene as we try to put on a forum to help individuals in our community. So thank you very much as it relates to that. Right back at you, good people. Your brother Educational Gilmore. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the first meeting for the Ward F Community Forum. I want to thank everyone for sharing, follow, and liking the pages on both Instagram and Facebook. And I also want to thank all of my team members for participating. We will be discussing in this closing, if you will, what we will be discussing for the next upcoming meeting. So we're going to be talking about development part 2, right? We're going to give more of an in-depth analysis on zoning. And we're going to really dive into the different type of zones and how those zones are constructed. Also, we're going to be talking more about public safety, because as you and I both know, public safety also includes bike lanes, safe streets, crosswalks, and things of that nature. So we're going to be diving into the second part of that. Also, we're going to be talking about affordable housing. With the influx of all these new condos going up in Jersey City, we must make sure that we're taking care of all of Jersey City and not just a particular demographic. So we're going to be discussing affordable housing. Senior tax freezes. Off the bat, I'm looking at that. I don't even know what it is. So I know it's going to be something that's very interesting, because we need to look out for our senior population. A lot of our parents and grandparents have properties. So we need to look at how these senior tax freezes are going to affect them. In this one, people, I don't know, man. Converting Section 8 vouchers into home ownership, people. I'm just going to stop and let that marinate for about 20 seconds, people. Converting Section 8 to home ownership vouchers, man. If you don't think that's a huge deal, I don't know what you think is a huge deal. I can't wait to get information on that. I can't wait, because I'm a firm believer that we must make as many homeowners here in Ward F as possible. So we're going to dive right into that. Now, block associations. This is very, very important, considering the changing demographic, all of the transit, all of the movement going on as it relates to people moving in and out of the community. So I'm a firm believer that once we create these block associations, people within the same block or area will begin to develop better relationships and things of that nature. So I'm saying that we all need block associations. And again, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to thank everyone for being part of, for the community, by the community, the Ward F Community Forum. Thank you so much. On that note, your brother Educational Gilmore, and I'm gone. Be great on purpose, people.